Okay, there it is, there it is.
Gone are the days for the rain. Ooh, I wonder, can you help me? The life
Got a
of
phone out.
me.
Oh my gosh, that was driving me nuts.
Oh, we're live. You'll be on. Can you hear me? Hello, chicken 1 2 1 2. You can. You did it, bro. You worked it out.
Yeah, I worked it out. Why can't we hear you? So you're one this new tech thing. It's what happens when you do an update and you don't get a chance to test it. Say something now, bro.
Hello, chicken 1 2 3 1 2 3. Tangaro says we hear Kwe.
Yep, okay.
Your hyper reo there, Tangaro.
It's a bit bloody scratchy, but we're on.
Okay, I'm just sending old our mate George Duku over in France. That's where George is, eh? Kia ora e hoa.
Kia ora, George. It'll be good for you to call in.
I'm gonna mute you for a second so that I can just keep talking brief second, bro, because for some reason your audio is not coming through. I'm just gonna check something.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Light beat. So, kia ora. Aaron, good to have you back here, my bro. Always, as ever. Tashi George. Tēnā koe dai. Hey, Dad.
Kia ora koutou. Yes, good to be back here. Eastern Bay, Mātātua. Mai nā kuri a whāre ki Chihiro. Been hanging out over in the Upako Deka in the last couple of days. So had some interesting conversation there with people I met, but I've been down to the police, the HQ of the police. There, talking, having a cup of tea with them. Really, that's what I call it. And so that was a really interesting couple of hours there, and going through.
What do they want to talk to you about?
Well, just around working how can we come into a Maori community, not as police officers, but as a researcher, and I just talk around about how you do that. I mean, and people really need to understand that, after 200 years of colonization, people are just still trying to work out their way how they can talk to the police, so it was really good, a really good conversation. They look, it's just really just a corridor, just like we're doing here today. And how do you navigate yourself around that? Many of our people don't really trust the system, and how do we engage and have a conversation?
Are you aiding and abetting?
Sorry?
Are you aiding and abetting?
Yeah, a bit like that. Yeah. But all good. Yep. Back in a lot better than it was in the days. Well, I don't want to bloody talk to you, marahua. But it's all good, and I think it's really good. We built that and pull things together. And I think it's around about changing our attitude to each other, and we just have to let go of some issues and see that at the end of the day, they're gonna be here, and we're gonna be here, and how can we work our way around it to avoid all the landmines and the booby traps that are
Because you were
running.
out at Shelley Bay as well, weren't you?
Yep. Yeah, it was really good around there. I introduced him with the Mohawks with BC yesterday, and connected him to Russell, who actually come from the Iroquois Nation, but he's involved with the this issue around about the pipeline going through up north of British Columbia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's real big issues. So they met up yesterday online. So bang, here talk to Russell. So that was really good. Yeah, no, really amazing. To be able to do that. And once upon a time, there's other issue heating up on the other side of the world, and we never be able to make those connections. But because we got the technology now, so we are able to do it immediately. And because I have those network there, on my little wee database.
Oh, so did they zoom in? Did they?
No, just went on through on Instagram actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, live on Instagram.
And how's the whānau down at Shelley Bay?
Well, they're really they're really pretty well organised and well put together really. So they have different layers of people actually te ringa wera, they got gardens, they got kai, and people just bring in abundance of food. And they got bags of fruits and stuff like that, so they're making apple juice and stuff like that. It's not good for diabetic, for diabetes people like me drinking a lot of that stuff, or else we'll mimi all day. Yeah, so plenty of that. Yeah, so plenty of kai and...
And how's that, because I know it was coming to a bit of a head there.
Yeah. Well, there's a conflict there, between the internally within the city, with the city councillors, and some for, some against, and yeah.
Hey, Dad. So we have a special guest who's about to. I think you'll be able to. Oh, we haven't set the TV up, my bro. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I'll do that. Let me set that up, but I'll bring them on and you can introduce them.
Yeah. Kia ora, George.
Hey,
Hey.
can you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah, we can hear you.
George. Yeah. I can't see George on the screen. Wait, did he?
Oh, yeah. He's coming. Just sit back down.
Oh, okay.
You're ruining our shot.
Oh, I don't, mate. Hey, George. Good to see you on here online. And how's it going there for you?
Hello, George.
Can you hear me, George?
Oh, no, you can't hear us now.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, you can?
Oh, yeah, I can just hear you. So,
Okay, I got to get closer.
Oh, that's
to my
better. Yeah, that's
Turn
better,
you
my
up,
bro.
George. It's okay. I'll turn you up.
yeah.
For him. I'll turn you up for him. There we go.
Oh, you turned yourself up quite a bit there too, my bro.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We're working off the same input there, so I'll turn myself down here. So.
So,
Yeah, hey to all you listeners out there on the Twitch and Facebook. George is an old mate of ours, and we got in Urupatu way back in 1998. I think about 98, George. And so we came up with
Last
an
century.
idea. So George been around for quite a long time. So he's an old from Maidano. So good to have you on board here with us, George. And he's over. Tell us where are you anyway? Yeah.
Oh, I just got out of bed. It's the Saturday morning here in Rouen, which is the ancient ducal capital of the province of Normandy in northern France. Yeah, so it's 5:30 here, but no, 10 to 6 now. It's still dark. It's winter. It's freezing cold.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that the Napoleon country? That's part of the Napoleon?
Yeah, and it's you could say it's a kind of a Hawaii for Te Ao Pākehā because there was a guy named Guillaume in France, William the Conqueror, who got together and went and invaded England.
Yes.
In 1066, and he beats this king called Harold, and the French, the Norman people rule England for 400 years.
Yes.
And the Norman people bring with them the judicial system, the Westminster system, the language, the English language, all the military words and all the legal words and all the administration words we find in the English language come from the Normans. And so this system reaches all the way over to Aotearoa.
Amazing, my bro.
With Elizabeth on the money, you could say, and being and her running her little business that she runs around the world. Yeah.
The system, and that was just their culture, right? That was just how they evolved and organized themselves.
Yeah.
And it just spread.
Yeah, it was a conquest. Yeah.
Aye.
Mm-hmm. And so, what are you doing over there, my bro? How did you find yourself over there in Normandy?
Well, put it this way, prior to COVID, I was spending half my time in Te Kāinga and Omahu, in the Heritonga, doing some projects for the hapu and the iwi.
Aye.
And I'd spend half the time here in Wuhan with my little whānau. And I spend half the time going around the world doing projects. So I successfully managed to squeeze 3 halves into one hole, you could say. But COVID's changed that now, and I haven't been able to get home to Aotearoa for over a year. But that's about to change next year, apparently.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
February.
Yeah. So I come over here to do a project, and to cut a long story short, I didn't leave.
That was like a decade ago.
Met somebody. I met
Yeah.
somebody, and we had a son, and his name was Ulysses Ruafaro Nuku.
So, flash,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. It's son number 5.
Oh,
Yeah. My collection.
Yeah, wow.
To whakapapa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the last time we hang out there out in that part of the world was over in London. So
Yeah.
yeah, you
That
had
was cool.
your other
Yeah.
people from pushing them around on the pram all around in London. That was a while back.
Yep.
So how's your art going now, George? What's the kind of work you're doing now?
I basically write
Wow.
my ideas down and write my concepts, my kaupapa down, and through the power of writing, I'm able to get my thoughts on paper and re-look at them. It's a bit like carving, really.
Aye.
And you take away the bits and you get it, crunch it down until your kaupapa is solid and sound and clear. That's the most important thing for me. It's got to be clear. And then I basically send my ideas out into the world, like fishing, like Maui, you could say. And I get a hook, and then they invite me to come and realize my project at their place. And so the dynamics revolve around the responsibilities of the host and the responsibilities of the manuhiri. And as Māori, we understand that because that's one of the cornerstone of our world is the relationship of hosting and visiting, and the responsibilities and the kawa and the tikanga that revolves around hosting and visiting,
Aye.
and how it's quite evolved way of living that Māori people kind of have developed over the centuries from the marae. And I apply all of that way of thinking to my practice, that I'm hosted and the host have a responsibility to take good care of me and provide everything to their ability, and my responsibility is to give the best I can in return. And artists are pretty cool when they're looked after. You know, artists will give above and beyond when they're treated well. If they're not treated very well, well, it's not very cool, is it?
No.
Yeah. So I'm doing that. I make my projects. I write my own projects. I also respond to other people's ideas, but I've learned now to make it clear from the start, because you got like a beginning, a middle, and an end of a project. So my whole art practice is about projects, and I've made I've made about 120 major projects around the world so far.
Oh,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah. That's great there, my bro.
I still can't get a show at Te Papa, but Kei Te Pai. So I kind of consider myself the white elephant in the corner of the Māori art room. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the elephant's just only growing larger and larger as the Māori art authorities kind of pretend that I'm not in the room. But that's all right.
That's choice, bro.
The world's a big place.
Oh, yeah, bro. And you have carved out a space for yourself.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Well, these places around the world, you know, it's amazing. I've got to tell you, it's amazing that just the sheer amount of the work of our ancestor that was all over the world. It's mind-boggling. You know, you think, hika man, the old people were so prolific, huh?
Aye.
They just produced and produced and produced and produced. Like, I've lost count. It's numbers in the thousands and the thousands of Tonga of the works of our ancestors, and so I say to these people that are where they're in these museums, you know, I say to them, look, okay, they're here, and you're charged with the preservation and the safekeeping of the works of our ancestors, and as they're in custody, you're custodian, and you're charged with the looking after their physical the physical aspect of our ancestor, and I say that I'm charged with the maintenance of the metaphysical aspect of our ancestor, that is all the things that surround those Tonga, like what they mean, what they stand for, what is the intention behind them, why our people made them, what do they still say, and that's my job is to maintain that, and so that we can have a relationship, and you don't tell me you don't know anything about, I say to them politely, you don't know anything about the metaphysical aspect of my ancestor. You don't know anything about the ideology or the philosophy that surrounds my tupuna. It's my job to look after that, and as you're conserving the physical side, I'm keeping the other side healthy, and we can have a relationship. And
how was that received?
it depends on the person, but some people take umbrage. They're slightly affronted because in the museum and places like that, it's about knowledge, and it's the knowledge game, and basically whoever owns the knowledge owns the stories, therefore is the authority. And this is kind of really getting to the crux of one of the last bastions of colonization and decolonization, because it's coming down to who's in possession of the stories. And I say we are. And so we are now, maybe it's always been this way, but there exists this last frontier, or this let's just call it a frontier, this territory, this vast territory that has no limit. You know, it's got no distance going this way, it's got no distance going that way, or up or down. It's huge, and I'm referring to that territory, that landscape between our ears. That is the territory,
right?
And that because we have precedent for this, because of our ancestors and our culture has proven to us that people went beyond every other day. They went beyond the limits. Otherwise we wouldn't be in Aotearoa. We wouldn't have managed to cross those great seas, for starters. They wouldn't have they wouldn't, Matatua wouldn't have got to land in the Bay of Plenty in Whakatane. That just wouldn't have happened without that confidence in the total self, you know, and the desire to realize that potential to its fullest. and that comes back to what I'm doing in the museums, because when the Pākehās first came to Aotearoa, we lived in Te Ao Kohatu. We lived in a world of stone, we lived in that world. And in one lifetime, we went from Te Ao Kohatu to the industrial age. We took a quantum leap. We didn't have the Dark Age, the Bronze Age, the Middle Age, the Renaissance, the Reformation, the Age of Enlightenment, etc., etc. We didn't have all those ages. We went straight from Te Ao Kohatu to the modern age, and we did it in a lifetime. And in that lifetime, most Māori people could read and write. So,
Right.
and so, the point I'm trying to make is that for us to do that to make that quantum leap, our tupuna exchanged all of that stuff I find in the museums. They exchanged that for all the stuff that they knew was required for us to survive. The metal, the scissors, the mirrors, the guns, all the stuff, right?
Right.
Because they were under no illusion that if as Aroha Mead said once, if you don't have a seat at the table, then chances are you're on the menu. So they did everything they can, and our ancestors only had minutes to make those calls. And they made those calls for better or worse, so that we can be here now. So I believe that it's something that I strive for every day, to make good on that payment, to make good on it. And that's the difference between, say, being a victim of the changes and being an agent of the changes. There's a kind of a subtle difference. If we could see it like a trapeze wire that we walk on, balancing on this wire between directing the changes and being directed by the changes, and how we maintain that, staying on that wire, like they had to, those people had to when those ships arrived. They, like I said, they didn't have a lot of time to make those calls. So I think that tells me that they were not politically naive in a socio-political sense. They understood the dynamics of power very well, and did all they can that they could, given the factors that they had, to have that agency, to have that Māori agency. And I believe, and I dedicate my life to the continuation of that Māori agency through my work, through my life, through the way I see things. I say two things. I say, don't worry, it'll be traditional by this afternoon. and I also say, well, George, nobody ever said it was a popularity contest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I suppose, Dad, I suppose you could. Those are a couple of things that I could probably imagine that you could say as well.
Oh yeah, totally.
As you're wearing your Napoleon hat, and how that's now been appropriated.
Yeah.
Yeah, last week he was wearing the Napoleon hat and singing the Chinese national anthem. A tūhoi here in Whakatane, in Ngāti Awa land.
No.
Incorporation, you could say. Incorporating.
No. Yeah. Pai wo korero, George.
A tāhua.
Yeah, pai wo korero, very clear. And I do understand what you're saying. And the way that our tūpuna put themselves in they managed to get themselves and learn new technology, new ideas, and even things like they're using the tools with the tāmoko. They were actually using steel way back in those days, and I'm definitely sure that if they were around here, they would have been doing the same thing, what you're doing right there, roaming around the world.
Hey, I just want to quickly shout out Daryl's online. Hey, bro, it's really great to see you and your brother here tonight. So, just kia ora, Daryl, and I hope you're well. Kia ora to all the whānau out there on Facebook and on Twitch. We've got some regulars in there, Tangaroa. We've got Aaron, Di. Good to see you fellas out there too. Brian.
Mark McKenzie too. Is that our accountant, Mark McKenzie? Might be another
Maybe.
Mark.
Yep. so kia ora whānau. And just if you've just joined us, we've got George Nuku coming to us at 5, very early in the morning. Your whānau asleep?
Yes, and they tell me I've got not to talk too loud, please. That's all right.
I know that's close to the microphone so we can hear.
Yeah.
So it's all good. Yeah. And sorry, I missed the place that you're at. What was it? It was.
It's a medieval city called Rouen, and it's the place where they burned Joan of Arc at the stake. She was burned here. She's a famous person in history. And up the road from here is the in the same region as where the Allied troops landed in Normandy during the Second World War when they came to liberate France and defeat Hitler's Germany. So that all happened here.
The invasion of Normandy. Is that one?
Yeah. You know, the first opening scene on Saving Private Ryan with the guys on the beach, and that's just down the road.
And so, bro, you've been. I mean, I remember the days with Daryl, with your bro, and the crew, and us with our little Stanley knives carving up the polystyrene there.
Which I'm still doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And you're still, and I know that you've worked a lot with plastics and specs. And you're still doing that kind of stuff. Hard out.
Yeah. It's kind of the basis of most of my work, because it's what I want to do, and secondly, those materials are available here. There's not a lot of whale's teeth in France, or whalebone, or pounamu, or things like that. So I use those materials, and the world pays me good money to do it, to be George. Yeah, which is proof that if you stick at something long enough, it'll look after you.
Yeah,
it will. It'll look after you. It'll look after your whānau. If you don't turn your back on it, or leave it in the dust, and you hiki it, you carry it, then it will look after you. I'm a small example as proof of that theory. Yeah, and practice.
Wow.
So I'm about to go to Vienna for a project, and this will be the biggest project so far I've ever done. This one coming up here, it's quite a big one. Yeah, it's in the palace, and I have to fill 12 rooms.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you have a crew like you used to have with us back in the day? Is there, are you carving it all by yourself, or have you got peeps?
I kind of got this gift where I can sort of get people to come and help me, and slaves of love, I call them. And they just come and help me, man. They do, especially with my bottled ocean, the plastic ocean projects I do. I mean, I physically can't do those alone. They're too big.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do them alone. People just walk into my life, literally. They walk through that door, and they become the people that help me. Yeah.
Right.
And funnily enough, they like, for example, when COVID started, I was in Holland in a city called Leiden, and I had 200 helpers on that project.
Wow. 200
people helping me. It was just full on, and it took 11 days to make this work. And it was cool that I had to kind of roster them, so I had fresh teams coming in as the other team left, and by the end of it, we sort of we feel really like we've shared something unforgettable, and you know what it's like when you go through something significant with people. It just changes you and them, and it's kind of happens to me regularly. Yeah. So I get people coming in from refugees from war-torn countries. I get rich people, I get retired people, I get young people, I get older people, I get people from different economic back status, rich people, poor people, people from all kinds of ethnicity, you know? So what ultimately occurs for me is that it generates this kind of situation of equality where everyone's the same, man. We're all equal, like on the marae, where everyone, whatever they're doing, is no less important than the other job. Whether you're washing the dishes or you're giving the speeches out the front, there's no kind of hierarchy of importance because you can't have one without the other, you know. And so there's this sense of equality, and I have to say that I've become addicted to that equality. It's now, I can't afford to judge how people on who they are or what they are or where they're from, whatever. You're all the same when you come into my world and help me. And in return, I can guarantee you'll have an unforgettable experience. Yeah, it's like that. And I'm kind of addicted to it now. Yeah.
Yeah, you're still doing that, George? You're still doing that?
Yeah.
Wait,
sometimes people will, you know, I'll be honest. Sometimes people will say to me, George, you should come home and you should work off our own. And they're right in a sense, but I got to say that I feel this other urge to say the world is my forest now. And in this forest there's equality. I don't fare that well as an artist doing collaborative projects, like collaborating with other artists. It doesn't really work for me. I say you come with me and I'll give you everything, I'll share everything, but it's under my direction, you know. And so there's a responsibility in that I have to make it as clear as I can what's going down, with an eye to say, okay, it's not that rigid. It is sure, and it should, but it's not completely rigid. Like, it can evolve, it can change organically with the circumstances. Because sometimes people will say, oh, what about if we did it this way? And I'll go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, you know. So you sort of get to learn to, I don't like the word manage, but how to understand people. Yeah. Because, you know, like I enjoy working with retired people because they know so much. You know, they know so much, and they've sort of seen a lot of stuff and done a lot of stuff. So they're quite happy to say, if I say to them, oh, could you just like paint this and we're going to make this look like that? And as long as it's clear, they're like, yeah, I'll do that. And you know, they'll stick at it, and yeah, and I just develop all these bonds with people. It's funny because people think, oh, wow, you got this amazing life, George, you know? You go all over the world and you go to all these amazing places, but to tell you the truth, it's the same wherever I go. I'm usually in a room somewhere, covered in stuff, working all day and all night, you know, with people, and it's kind of my sentence. You could say, you know, I'm always going to be in this space, working like a demon, and then usually on the day of the vernissage, of the opening, I'm like dog tired, and I try my best to kind of clean myself up, but it's cool. During the process of working and finishing and getting it all done, it does help me to kind of mentally prepare my lines about what I'm going to say. So, you know, I'm kind of like, Tor, you understand, I'm kind of like an actor. I have to do a bit of acting as well. So, you know, in the ceremonies, I have to say things that, profound things or whatever. So I get a chance to kind of work out what I'm going to say, and I work on that part of things too. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all actors in our own way. We're acting our
We
lives.
sure are, mate. We sure are.
And it's interesting, yeah. Korero, bro. Here, tāhua to korero e hoa. It's you know, been a long time since we've actually gotten to sit down and have a korero. geez, been decades. So
Yeah,
choice
sort
to
of,
hear
where
you.
does it all go, eh?
Well, you're still the same.
Still the same.
Still
I mean,
the same
it's so
as.
funny when you're talking about. I can still see us all up at 4 a.m. in the morning,
Yeah.
you know, putting those last touches on
We were
the
slaves of loved ones.
Yeah.
on the things, you know, and putting them up and figuring out how that's going to get suspended and not kill anyone, and then and you know, and you're just like working.
It was one of the only times I've stayed up for close to 72 hours straight.
That
One
was
of the
mental.
gigs.
That one up
That
north,
was
eh?
mental.
That was mental.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
actually, when you get to the 36-hour mark, you actually get high.
Yeah.
You actually get this genuine high come on, and you just like get this
Yeah.
another wave
You're
of
tripping.
energy.
Yeah.
You are. But no, really enjoying your korero, bro, about, you know, because our tupuna were adventurous people. There's many examples of Māori like yourself who ventured over towards Europe and stayed there for many years. And you know, there's always that feeling in that korero that, oh, you know, hoki ki te kāinga, you know, that you got to come home and you got to there's a duty that you have to play out by helping your own people. But you know, you're doing that. You're actually role modeling in many ways, going out and being an ambassador. But actually just doing your mahi, doing your work. And I like what you said, you know, the world is your forest now. And our tupuna were like that.
Yeah.
They weren't actually, I sort of see us sometimes locked into, you know, these structures, these marae, which are actually kind of post-colonial in many ways, you know, and we house everything. It's like we can never let these things move, and our tupuna weren't like that. So I appreciate your spirit. I think a lot of people are resonating with the korero out there in Facebook world too, my bro.
Yeah.
With that korero, and it goes with the new materials that you're working with too. You know, I'll often talk about the evolution or dilution of our culture because of our colonized trauma. We get scared of evolving our culture because we feel like it's diluting ourselves and our culture. But you know, our tupuna picked up many tools, and the fact that you've moved away from wood and whale bone and you're working with these other materials, he rite te whakaaro, he rite te kōrero. You know, you're still putting that ao wairua into your mahi. Ahakoa te mea, or whatever it's made out of.
And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, well, they-
in terms of that, what you're saying there, bro, and I see Tiara is sort of commenting on it as well, which is the world is our forest. And you're right, when you think about our tipuna going out and not, you know, out onto the oceans and you know, exploring the world, and then and landing here, that it makes sense. And I agree with Toy. It's awesome that you are out there kind of doing that same thing, right? And representing and yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing for Harvard, right?
I get to. The upside for me is that I can say that I kind of get to grow exponentially. You know, I just experience and grow so exponentially, like I just said.
Yeah.
And I need that kai. I do. I see now that kai is for me. You know, I can't speak for others, but I speak for myself, and that kai is what makes George. George doesn't do well with other people telling George how to be George. George has a big problem with that, and it's funny because here in France, my name is Georges, which is with an S on the end. You know, that's how they write my name, which I've kind of found funny because that sums me up so well. You know, there's Māori George, Scottish George, German George, from my whakapapa, polystyrene George, whatever. You know, there's a whole lot of Georges, right? And to this George, and I say to all the Georges, hey, you're not just going to ride around on my back having a free ride, guys. You know, we all got to pay the rent.
Yes.
And I'm the living, breathing George right now, so I get to call it.
Yes.
And I dare say that all my ghosts are quite happy being employed. You know, they're quite happy to. It's not. The point I'm trying to make is that I don't want to see those past traumas or baggage or whatever things we have, whatever label we want to put on it, as the things to hold you down. I think you should develop healthy relationships with your baggage and your sides and put them to work, man. Because you know that's what's so good about it, you know.
Yes.
Well, I remember the story of Ruawharo. When Ruawharo was a little boy living in Hawaii, he would go to the lagoon and he would play by the lagoon by himself. And Ruawharo could hear the monsters from under the bottom of the sea. He could hear the monsters, the taniwha, the voices of them. And he went to see his mother, who was a matakite, and said, Mama, I can hear all these monsters talking. And his mother said, Kei te pai, don't worry, son, they won't hurt you. It's okay. And so he went back and he plays at the lagoon. And after some time, he got to understand their korero. And then after some time, he got to speak the language of the monsters. And so he could then converse with these monsters, and they told him all the secrets of the universe. And so he was spending his time like that, being himself, because that's what he was wanting to do. And people in the kainga in the village were gossiping, you know, and they were saying, Ruawharo, he's always there by himself. Ruawharo, he dresses funny, you know. Ruawharo, he thinks he's better than us. And when something would go wrong in the village, they say, it's Ruawharo's fault. And after some time, after several more of this kind of talking, some of the people started to say, I think it would be a good idea if we killed Ruawharo. And Ruawharo's mother said to him, my son, you have to leave. You have to leave, and you have to leave tomorrow. The waka is leaving, you must go on it. And that would be a difficult thing for a mother to say. And he did. He went. And when Taki Timber, when the waka was encountering difficulties, Ruawharo commanded those monsters to come and protect the waka, because he had this relationship with them. And the point I'm trying to make is that the worst thing that we can do with our monsters is ignore them and deny them. Our monsters are to be faced.
Yes.
And our monsters are to be understood, and our monsters are to have resolve things. We should try and resolve what we can with the monsters. And I kind of make this analogy with my work with the plastic pollution and the bottles and the pollution is like I've got so much of it physically in my body anyway that from working with it all these years, I can't separate myself from it even if I wanted to. So I've kind of got I would say that I've ingested so much and I've spent so much of my life with it that I have an immunity with this monster, and I understand this monster, and the monster has told me many things, man. For example, this plastic, you know, this plastic here, right? This bottle, right? I talk to kids, and I say to kids, where does this bottle come from? And we try and figure it out, We say, it comes from oil. Yep, right. Where does the oil come from? It comes from our mother. That's right, deep down in the ground. How's the oil made? From the bone of the dinosaurs and the forests and the mountains and the million of years, etc., etc. Right. So then maybe this plastic bottle is the oldest thing you ever have in your hand, because it's so old. So this bottle was an ancestor, you could say, to us. So maybe we should treat our elder with more respect, with this oldest mea tawhito, right? But at the same time, I say, but guess what? It's also the newest thing. it's also the newest thing in the world and the newest thing in your life. So you've got the situation where it's the oldest thing and it's the newest thing at the same breath. Like the young people, because I say that's how it describes them. I say, you are the oldest person in the room. You are you, and all of those ones before you, that makes you the oldest. And you're also the newest. So you're just the same as that plastic bottle. So the point I'm trying to make here is that between these two contradictions, right? Between being the oldest and the newest, there's a space. There's a space between them. There's a space of discovery. There's a space where we can find out a whole lot of things. There's from this monster. There's a space where we can discover some truths about ourselves. Even maybe the pollution and the plastic can save us from ourselves.
Well, and that goes back to that what you were saying about our tipuna being kind of quantum in that sense, where they can exist in and not exist at the same time.
Yes.
And so deep,
You're
bro,
right.
deep. Fuck, I've missed you, and sitting down and just having a good yarn with you.
What you said is so the crux of it all, because I've learned now to see what I do in my life and all this work I do, whatever. I say that it's everything and it's nothing.
Yeah.
At the same moment, I say it's nothing and it's everything, and I believe that by being like that, you can be free. You know, we can be free enough to even make mistakes.
Yes.
You know, we can be free of all the things that we load on ourselves. Like Toy said, in this thing of the oppression that's become internalized and the colonization and how we put all these kind of limitations on and prescriptions on our culture. How we prescribe it ourselves to the point where we can't do anything. Nearly.
Oh, sorry, bro. No, go carry on.
And I say, okay, well, if some people are going to set themselves up to be the authority over and prescribe what our culture is going to be, then I have to have enough sense of self on myself to go, well, that's fine. That's one way of looking at it. It's not the only way of looking at it. That's just one way of looking at it, guys. And I've got another way of looking at it. And why can't your measurement of life and my measurement of life sit side by side? Why does this other measurement of life have to be on top of this measurement of life? I mean, my God, we've just had 200 years of that from colonization, right. And now we're starting to do it to ourselves.
It's where the colonizer becomes the colonizer.
We made a good point about that.
The colonizer becoming the colonizer. It's happening.
You got it there, mate.
Because it's about power and control, and when people have a sense of power and control, and they gatekeep your culture. So there's a whole korero now about what is and what is not tūhoi, and what it is to behave like a tūhoi, what is tūhoi behavior or not tūhoi behavior. And I'm going, well, who gets to dictate that? Is that written in stone somewhere? Who is tūhoi? When did they turn up? When did we suddenly emerge as tūhoi? From hapu, from the kuhu. But it's political, it's power, control. I mean, and you're in the middle of it over there in Europe, like you said, the Normandies. And I love that you have that perspective of where a culture's tikanga and kawa and ture spread throughout the world. But you're there where a people, the Normans, and their culture and their tikanga, their kawa, their tapu and noa, the way that they organise themselves. You can see that. You can apply that to what you're doing now. And then when you look at what's happening in the world with COVID, with the reality of the geopolitical machinations, the rise of the right that's happening in Europe at the moment, which you'll be amongst, and I'm sure you're across that too, but also with the migration of people coming out of Africa and from the Middle East through France into Europe trying to find another life, all of the stories, you're right there in the midst of them, my bro. It must be a wealth of inspiration for you.
You get to see on a bigger scale also how the pendulum can swing quite easily to a space of intolerance and of hatred of the other. And a lot of things I've learned through or I've experienced in my life and come to these realizations about what I do with the plastic, for example, is I say to people, I say, look, if I could take my eyes out of my head like this and put my eyes into your eyes, then you would see what I see when I look at this plastic, right? But I can't do that, obviously. So this work I do is my attempt for you to see what I see. And that is connected to like being with your dad and you guys. It's been a journey for me about where we have all made a lifelong commitment to try and contribute to the restoration of confidence, yes? So that people are not looking at the ground all the time. Try and contribute to that restoration of this confidence that's been eroded. And the second thing about what I was saying about the plastic and that is that the idea of to build empathy. In other words, to put your eyes in the eyes of the other and see what they see and see what the monsters see or see what those people over there see, because the lack of empathy is horrific now in the world, that people will not consider the other person's point of view anymore. The migrants, the migrants and the Muslim people, etc., are the super bad villains of the world right now, and everybody will not see them as maybe, like they just got whānau and they're just trying to live and they're just trying to look after their kids and make, etc., and they're not these demons that they're painted out to be by certain people who it's in their interest to promote this kind of lack of empathy and this division and this hatred that's going to lead to where it goes under this kind of concept or kaupapa of absolute, like my truth is absolute. That's when you start saying that stuff like my God is the only God, your God is not the God, my God is the God, etc. Once we're in that mode, people start bleeding real fast. Over here, that's what goes down here. A bomb goes off and there's blood everywhere from people saying your God offends my God, or your beliefs offend my beliefs, etc., and so I think that we've got to just build empathy. We've got to be able to see how the other sees, or try our best to anyway. And this whole business between vax and anti-vax, if we could just kind of breathe a bit, just please guys, just breathe and just okay, see it through each other's eyes and less screaming. As I think it was Sigmund Freud said that the voice of reason is quiet voice. It's a quieter voice than the going full Hundi voice, and it's all around us now, that kind of way of delivering your point of view. It's just people are just screaming it down your face. So it makes you think about, this is the big word right now, isn't it? Freedom, liberty. It's the big word, right? And I maintain, hey, freedom is a relative concept. A person who lives in Takapuna, their concept of freedom is not going to be the same as someone who lives in Gaza.
Yes.
In Gaza and Palestine, they're not going to have the same standards of freedom.
Yes.
So freedom is relative. And so if we were to then look at, could we try and find a universal definition of freedom that could somehow apply to all our contexts, what would that be? And I'd say that universal definition of freedom would have to be dignity. That would be the thing that sets us free, is dignity. The moment we all start losing it, we become slaves. And that dignity could be connected with this idea of freedom. I think about this a lot these days. Because it's what I see in Aotearoa right now is kind of basically what happened to us a year and a half ago. It's kind of like, it's a weird feeling, man. Like you feel like you live in the future and you're watching it play out, you know, because as the pandemic has finally hit Aotearoa and Aotearoa's going through the whole thing that, you know, because remember, man, like last year, you know, when you guys were all like, yeah, woohoo, going to 660 concerts, having a great life, woohoo. And we were like locked down for a year, man. We couldn't move for a year. And we'd watch you guys online, you know, we'd watch you guys at the 660 concert, you know, doing your thing and just being so happy for you. And just going, wow, man, I'm so happy so glad that you can do that, you know. And now seeing we're sort of further down the track here now, you know, where everyone's kind of relatively chill, calmed down a bit, and everyone's going out of their way to help each other out in the way that they can, and comply with for a bigger picture. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And because we got no choice, man. You know, we got no choice. Like Toy said, you got movement of people here in Europe that it's, man, you can't stop that, eh? It's Europe. You know, people have been walking in and out of here for over 2,000 years. Right? It's not that easy to stop it, eh? Like in Aotearoa, where you've got the ocean around you.
Yeah.
You know.
So, a lot of people don't have an awareness or really an understanding or feel for actually what it's like over in those kinds of over in Europe, where you have such a concentration of people and such a scale and number of people. So it always seems a little bit, like you said,
it's like one big massive town, bro. It really is. And these big cities are like suburbs of this big town, where, you know, everyone's just going like they always have. So over here, people are, you know, like they don't really have time anymore to like kick up a big fuss about wearing a mask, or kick up a big fuss about being conscious about keeping distance. And, you know, people are just like, that's what we've got to do. We don't have that old pre-COVID life anymore. It's gone. It's gone forever, man. Everyone knows that now. There's no going back to, when things get back to normal. There is no going back, guys. This is it. And that's the same for at home now. There's no going back to the other way. It's finished. You know, adapt or you won't make it.
Yeah.
We've got the Ohiwa Harbour here, my bro, and we just had a study come in on the microplastics, where they went through and did samples from the silt, and as well they went in and looked at the various you know, pipi and cockle and kutai, and looked inside and looked at the microplastics that were inside of, and it's everywhere. It is everywhere.
Yes.
And I was, you know, it was a sobering read, that report, and I was asked for a comment to the media because it's part of my local government work, and because there's nothing we can do about it. It is there. We're never going to go back to a space where our harbours and our kaimoana or our food chains don't have microplastics in it. Because it comes out on our clothes too, you know, most of our clothes have got plastics in it. Put it through the wash, and then that goes out, and that's how a lot of it's finding its way into the ecosystem. And so I love your analogy, bro, of
It's
having to,
actually now part of our molecular structure
it's
now.
part of.
So
and
so
you're,
and since it has been like that, the spermatoza count amongst human males is lowering as a result. So it's actually kind of winning in the
I
evolution
always say,
game.
you know,
So
and people say we have to save the planet or save the environment. I'm like, actually, the planet and the environment don't really need us to save it. It's us that who are in danger. It is us who is making the environment potentially, you know, unless we make ourselves cyborgs, we sort of download ourselves and become digital entities that are expressed in zeros and ones. Our mortal coil, our flesh and bone are at mortal peril because we may not survive. You know, but the environment, our planet,
I get invited a lot to climate change conferences, right? Either online or physically, and I've got to the point where maybe I'm not getting invited to so many anymore because I go to these conferences and I say, look, if we're not going to talk about, if we can't talk about this in relation to everything else going on in our lives, then we're just wasting our time, and we'll probably see each other at the next conference and the next one after that and the next one after that, because you can't see climate change only in a scientific point of view. That's just folly. It's you got to see it in relation to like how we are, how we treat our bodies, how we treat each other, how we treat this, how we treat that, the relationship between genders, the whole relationship of mental health, and the relationship of teenage suicide. These are all connected, and people look at me like, oh, hang on. And some people get angry and leave the room. And I say, look, can't you see what's going on here? There's just a lot of hurting. There's a whole lot of hurting. And until we address that, until we can somehow address this out of control capitalist model that we're all stuck into, then I'll see you at the next 20 million conferences, and there'll be a new logo and a new name for the conference and a new branding and a new brochure. But, you know, and that we have been in this environmental activist game now since the 70s. So that's 50 years of this, and there hasn't really been any change. In fact, it's got worse. So we've got to admit that we're either like really dumb or too arrogant to accept that we're keeping on doing something that's not working. Now that's just like, if you keep doing something and it's not working, you got to ask yourself, like, am I stupid, or am I just that arrogant or that unaware of a something bigger? I'm just so focused on my own authority of what I'm thinking and what I believe and what I'm doing that I can't relate that to everything else. And we Māori people are relatively wealthy, and that we are in our inheritance of that everything that in our whole universe is based on whakapapa. That everything is genealogically tied to everything else. So that's like second nature to us.
Aye.
So that's already encoded in our human nature, that nature is whakapapa.
Aye.
And that means that we're kind of in a position to actually share that with the world and to contribute to us, you know, even just getting that realization, because people have forgotten that. People have forgotten that. I think that the role of creative activities, like looking at Tame right now painting his amazing painting, is that the action of doing that, and that in that action, we as the audience, we are literally being taken with Tame somewhere. You're taking us somewhere with where you're going with that. You're inviting us to go with you, and we are all going with you. And I think in doing that, somehow we forget ourselves for a moment. And we're so enthralled and engaged in that that we forget ourselves, and that in turn helps us to forget about a whole lot of stuff while we're busy forgetting ourselves, and we're going that way, that it enables us to somehow remember or reconnect with some essential things. It helps us to remember again the essence of what is really what this is all about. You know, the fact that, for starters, it's an incredible act of generosity on the part of Tame, that he would share his solitude like that, like you do when you make music. Why? Like you do when you're acting and all your other mahi toi, is that you guys are sharing your solitude, and it's an incredibly brave thing to do. And that is essential to us getting back to where we've gone, where I believe we've got so far away from. And so this creative actions are helping. They are actually making the wheel turn correctly. You know, people say that about artists all the time. They go, "Oh, you artists, you know, you think the world revolves around you." And you say, "Well, actually, it does."
Yeah.
Because I'm responsible for that. You know, it's my job is to be that axis mundi, that axis, so the world can turn in a healthy way. That's what we've been doing since the beginning of time, guys. That's it's no surprise, because my God, we live on a rock that turns around. Okay, it spins around, it turns around, and it turns around. As it's turning around the sun, and as that's turning around, the whole galaxy's turning around. That's why it looks like it does, the universe, etc. So the idea of things turning around we're hardwired to be like that. You know, you know what I mean. Like, we'll walk into a room and we'll start from the left, and we'll just unconsciously walk clockwise around the room.
I think also, George, you're you know, it's an artists about creating worlds.
Yes.
You know, and so that's that whole, you know.
And
so
where does that come from? Why exactly? that territory between the ears again, right? This
exactly, yeah. And I think also, like, I'm also listening to you speak and talk about the people that are drawn towards you, and I think about artists who create, and this happens with Dad quite a bit, is the people that are drawn towards them, and that when you're creating these worlds, is that you start to generate your own gravitational pull. So that's where all of these things started to come into orbit, and then they, and so. It makes sense that you know, that there's this idea in the analogy around, you know, how the what you were saying before, which was around how you're rotating and you're cycling around, and in your head,
revolution.
Yeah, exactly.
And those patterns are found throughout nature. Just why we think we're not part of those same patterns. It's even through whakapapa. You see the patterns through whakapapa, the spirals,
the seasons,
seasons,
cycles,
that comes, they're nearly like echoes that come through whakapapa as well. I like what you said too, George, around how you know, that moment, having a moment of forgetting ourselves, and I'm guessing, or my impression of what you were saying was a moment of being able to forget or let go of one's own ego, central self, the self, all of that, and being able to. Because when you do have those moments of letting that go and just being there with either the artist or whoever you're with as well, there is that connection, which is less egocentric, less, you are more there together and connected. I love that.
Dad, when you're painting, like, how do you find that, like, what's happening? Like, do you find yourself being able to kind of disconnect from the ego, or rather that's?
Oh no, it's you know, it's bigger than me. You know, when I'm working, it's really you become a co-creator. So which means that we all have roles and responsibilities, you know, to be able to telling those stories, sharing those stories, and I find myself, you know, I'm working on this piece here. Yeah, and creating something to kind of provoke, It's not about Tame Iti, not at all. I'm just a very small part of it. And I find that whether it be painting, whether it be me going around in Europe with Lemi Panafasia and taking those stories globally. And yeah, it took me a long time really to try and work out. You know, I mean, we always had to keep asking, talking to ourselves, why am I here? What's the purpose? You know, and so for me, I work with a whole lot of other people. I collaborate with a whole lot of group of people, and that's how I work. And I hear what George is saying, tikatana kōrero. But then most of the time I'm here in my own space, and most of the time, and I rely on ngā wairua, the wairua ko ka kairoto i tō ira atuatana. So you become the co-creator. And most time, I mean, I spend most of my time here. And the reason I spend my time here because I'm conscious of the time for me. You know, and I'm now sort of working my way. It's actually going out to another world. And so I have to spend more time now creating the work and leaving something behind and to share the thoughts, the image, and to provoke. We're continuously provoking. Ki te whakatima I te hine naro te tanata. You know, in every aspect that we can. So I really like your kōrero there, George. I understand that totally, 100%. And of course, our tipuna move around. And we're still doing that, you know, and you're doing it. And it's really good for the kōrero that you share with us. And here with the people here on with us on our live show. And I think it's really important that we continue to have these types of conversation. So kia ora e hoa mo tōna wō kōrero hohonu, marama, love it, you know, love that kōrero. And so we need more depth to it. And this is a very small part of it, and I'm constantly learning new things, and we shouldn't stop learning. You know, and I think it's a continuation of learning. So I'm always finding a way that how can I improve in my practice, in the way I do things. And it's so, yeah, kia ora.
There's a lot of comments, but I just looking through there. Kia ora to Too Slick over in Twitch and Bridge. We've got Turu Makina. He was with us a couple of weeks ago, I think. He was doing some moko on a young lady, and then dialed in, and we got to hang out with him and do the same thing that we're doing with you, George. It was pretty cool. So Turu Makina is there. He's just saying until corporate power is out in its place. Nothing will change. So he's I'm sure you two together is like a huge conversation. It was a very similar, deep conversation with Turu Makina as well.
That was great. It was really cool. Oh, because he's the same. He's over in the Gold Coast doing tamako.
Yeah.
You know, he's doing the kind of the same thing, same situation as you, bro. Who's that? A shout out to Jimmy O'Dear. That's from Amakura. Panoho. Oh, kia ora, Amakura. Kia ora, Otawa. Yeah. Kia ora, Jimmy O'Dear. That's from Amakura. Geez, I feel like a My FM whenever we do shout outs.
Oh yeah, but generally, whānau, just if you're enjoying the kōrero and our good friend here, George, who's in France and who's taken the time to get up early and come and hang out with us, just give us a shout out in the comments and let us know if there's anything that's resonating with you, which you're all doing anyway. Yeah. Oh well. And so, do you get a chance, George, to so I know that you've been working with the more synthetic materials and kind of that, but do you get an opportunity to work with the the traditional materials anymore?
But yeah, I still carve my pearl shells because
Yeah.
I can get those here, and bones, and wood. Yeah, I still do, and stone when I can. But generally speaking, I'm using the other materials because I started expanding my process further by connecting with natural history museums who have collections of manu from Aotearoa and the moko and the shells and the stones and the minerals, all from Aotearoa that these people collected, in the last 200 years, right? So I now have access to all these collections in Europe, and I mix them together with the taonga, and I use my polystyrene and perspex as the glue that glues them together. Sometimes literally, like, I'll make a sculpture and incorporate the manu and the cloaks and the taonga and all in one korero, because just to say, well, why would we separate nature and culture? It doesn't kind of make any sense to, particularly from Te Ao Māori, and I've learned quite a lot of things from that. I've had a lot of personal epiphanies happen to me. Some really big moments happened to me in the course of doing this. One time, the deal, you, like you said before, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You haven't been to bed for like 3 days. You haven't eaten. I'm living on chocolate and coffee, and I just finished building a waka that which I named Taki Timu, and it's got a house on it made out of. I'll go back a bit. What I was doing, I was in a project in southwest France, and the teams kept bringing in these specimens, right, from home. These preserved birds and all that. They keep bringing them in every night. They bring in a trolley. They'd be excited, like, George, we found these. And I go, oh, okay, we've really got enough now. And then they brought in one last one, and it was a skull of a pygmy sperm whale. Okay, and I looked at the skull and said, wow. And I smelt it, and it smelt like it was just being picked up off the beach. It smelled like that stinky smell of bone, and it was. They said, oh, this was brought to France in 1820.
Wow.
And I said, wow, and it had this kind of old-fashioned label on a piece of cardboard, and I had a look at it, and I turned it over, and it said that it had come from Opotama Beach, where Ruawharo lived, and and I sort of I had this kind of like wow moment, and so I made this waka out of perspex. I named it Taki Timu. I had built a house on it. And Ruawharo was the teko on this house. He was at the top of this house on this waka. And then I realized that why I had made this was for that skull to go in this house, It was to carry this this skull from home, from Ruawharo's legacy. And anyway, so I did that, and I'm sitting in this museum by myself, 3 o'clock in the morning, working, and I don't know. I saw the waka. I saw the waka move, and I saw the waka move past me, and I saw the waka go through the wall.
Wow.
And I was like, oh man, I was freaking out.
Need some sleep.
And yeah, and I saw it go through the wall and leave, and I had this epiphany that by doing what I did, I gave that whale a good death, and dignified its mate, and it was able to go home. And so that changed things for me about that we can orchestrate and engineer this way of looking at things and create this way of being, that the spirit of all these things that are held in these places can leave and return at their own volition. you know, they're not to be, they don't have to be seen as prisoners or in some kind of jail, but by changing the way that they're seen or the way we do it, getting people like myself and others who are connected to those respective cultures, we can do this. Because, you know, like for example, sometimes I've been in scenarios in museums and, you know, a Māori delegation will walk in and it's cool and we're all there, the people are there chanting, doing all the stuff, heading towards the Māori display where the exhibition is. You know, they've been there to perform the ceremony, which was very important and moving, and yet we'll walk past the stuffed zebra or whatever, and it's kind of like a selective wairua.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, hey man, it's either all sacred or it's not.
Kia ora.
Aye.
You know? And
Totally.
if you're going to start sort of cherry picking what's sacred and what's not sacred,
Yeah.
Aye.
I'm not in your team, you know,
Aye.
because that's like kind of saying, oh, I love my kids, but I don't really love those kids over there, you know, and it just can lead to a whole lot of.
We can be a bit
It's
like
just
that
not-
as
it's not
Māori.
my way.
I must say we can be a little bit, you know, narcissistic as a culture, kind of just into our own things and kind of. I
Yeah.
agree with you, he tika. Because it is.
I
It's
think
all part
that
of the
I
natural
understand
world.
that while we're so staunch to ourselves, but I respectfully add that it's a challenge to widen that. It's a challenge to say that you can, that you're rich enough to, you're wealthy enough to, you've got so much that you can afford to share it about because you've got so much. Maybe the thing is you don't actually realize that you've got so much because, man, in the world, I see people with this much and they'll work it because that's all they've got, you know, and I think, wow, we are so wealthy. Māori people are so freaking wealthy. We are so wealthy, man.
Yes.
We have so much. We still remember the names. We still can talk about our tupuna that lived 1,000 years ago. We can talk about them like it was just like 6
Yesterday.
months ago,
Yeah.
or even yesterday.
Yeah.
We are so freaking wealthy, and we'd better really make good use of that, eh?
Aye.
You know, like I am because I have no choice. I've got to use all of what I've got in the situations I'm placed in, you know, because sometimes it's just me alone. Then I'll have to do it.
Aye.
I'll have to sing. I'll have to speak. I'll have to dance. I'll have to do it all because there's only me.
Aye.
Or else like I said about the equality thing, I'll teach some other people how to do a haka pōwhiri so that I've got some people,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I'll make sure they do it properly,
Yeah.
to the best of my ability, and I go, okay, we're the people. They're coming. Are you ready? Because
Yeah.
it's on. You know, we are here. We are here to invest this work we've just done together. This baby we've all just had. We're here to announce its birth. So we better be on point. And as you know well, Toya, yeah, it's a show. We are performers.
Yeah.
We're performing our life. We're on the stage, so to speak. And if you are, then you better meet it fully.
Yes.
You know, there's no good sort of half going, oh, I don't really, you know, people stand up and say things like, oh, you know, I don't really do this kind of thing. Don't say that. Just do it.
Yeah.
You know, don't put all that in front of what you're doing. Oh,
Yes.
I'm not really good at doing this, or I'm not. Yeah, you got no time to say all that. Just meet the moment and do it. Just bloody do it. You know, do it like it's the last and the first day of your life. Do it,
Yes.
and you'll be surprised what happens next. You'll be really surprised.
Dad,
You know?
Dad, you've had some key performances in your life.
Yeah, I can say that again.
Oh, pretty out of his stuff, man. And I think you know you gotta push it. You know, there's you know we breaking down those barriers. You know, the system itself create those barriers, obstacles, and then we allowed ourselves to be slaves to it. And you know, much like you, George, and just goes push it down. You know.
How have you found, Dad? How have you found your, you know, the necessity to perform, you know, to create a spectacle or to, you know, live up or embody the monster that George was talking about, to put, you know, to put that out there and be the monster that everyone thinks that you are, so that it can capture them, you know, and embrace that.
Well, I think the first thing for me is really working with myself personally, and a lot of that is a breathing exercise, and I do, and I'm clear. As long as that you're clear in your own mind, why you doing it, and the purpose of doing it. And one thing I have learned, being brought up under colonization, is that the many booby traps and landmines that they create right in front of us, and prevent us to move, to shift ourselves away from that. And it took me a hell of a long time for me to overcome that, to allow myself to be free, to be able to, you know, and so, and I guess that if we go back to the ancient story, in the days of when the children of Rani and Papa was stuck in the dark, in the po kinekene, the po nui, in the po roa, until one day one of them actually managed to see light in life. And so out of that came about this conversation, you know, because when one of them took their korero, kite au I te māramatana, and they said, wow, and so they were really quite excited about that conversation. And so out of that came this conversation. So Timatau, and they say, get rid of them, give them the bash. You know, tāwhiri mā say, blow them away. But Tani was the one that able to create this space, and it moved, it shifted, and enabled for new growth. You know, and I think that, and that's really what we are talking about. And so it took me a long time to work that out mentally and psychologically, and to take that challenge. And so it wasn't an easy task at all. You know, and you know, sometimes you get locked up for it, you get abused by it, and all of those many things that we are subject to. And so that's, you know, just 50 years or more doing that. You know, and even doing things like writing the lines. And part of writing the lines, telling those stories. And I think it's really important for us there to tell those stories, even today, and become an art piece. You know, and I'm writing stuff there as an 80-year-old child. I'm a child, I was a kid at 80 years old. I'm still writing their stuff. And it's really important for people to understand that. And so it didn't stop me learning te reo. The reo was already taught to me, you know, to us, to our whānau. We learned it at home. We didn't learn te reo at school. Yeah, but the school were trying to homogenize us. So, you know, so we go through. Yeah, so I'm really excited about the korero that you're sharing with us, George. You know, and, you know, because I totally understand that. You know, and, you know, I can breathe with it. You know, I can listen to you comfortably and excited about it. And the fact you brought that korero here to this space, because people need to know that. And it enable us to make some shifts and changes. Now, I'm not right all the time. I'm not perfect. You know, and I made mistakes, many mistakes. You know, I done things that I will never do that again. But I learned from that, learning from those experiences. And yeah, so thank you for sharing those korero with us, George. And I remember, you brought it in London, you brought a couple of haka team with blue eyes, blonde hair kids, remember? And that was amazing. It was really great there that you were able to, was it in London? You had a group there from London, George? Remember?
I found these kids, and some of them were the last living uri of Captain Cook.
Oh, yes, yes.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Their surname was Cook, and they came off his sister.
Wow.
They were the last of the uri of that whānau. So
Whakapapai. Yeah.
I just thought, okay, here we go. It's on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still remember that, and that was really great.
There's the concept
But yeah,
of the...
what you said before, like when you're in the execution of painting that your art there, that I've discovered also that our old people didn't make creative things for nothing. They didn't do it for the sake of it.
Yeah,
they had for a reason. And if we can remember that when we are doing this mahi, that there's no such thing as I'm just doing it because I don't have a reason. Well, actually, when we are doing it, we are the ones that are communicating the culture. We're defining the culture every moment. That we are writing or painting or speaking or carving or whatever. Our very worldview, our culture, our philosophy, it's been executed, it's been performed. So, and it's a constant process of redefinition. We are redefining it on a daily basis. Like, when Maui and all his brothers, when they pulled up the big ika, and the big ika was on the surface of the moana, it was exhausted, and how it was smooth and flat. The ika was smooth and flat, and Maui said, "Taiho, stay here, please. I have to go away." And I think he had to go and get his mato, or maybe he had to go and see the korero to make the ika safe to live on. And how he went away, and then the brothers started arguing over which part of the ika they were going to live on, and then they started having and hitting each other with their hoi, and the sharp blade of their hoi was high the ika, started to high tear the ika and lacerate the fish, and in the process of that, the fish started to scream with the pain and twist its back and contort its body, and blood was gushing out everywhere as they were getting carried away, and how they, in that process, they redefined the very topography of Tika Maui. They redefined it in that moment. And so that meant that the days of the smooth fish were over. There was no going back to the smooth fish. It's over, guys. This is the new definition of the fish now, for whatever reason. But it was redefined, and how we are hardwired to do that with our creative acts. Maybe the whole rest of humanity is as well, but I know Māori are. We are, when we paint, when we carve, when we draw, when we sing, when we speak, etc., those are all the languages that we are deploying to maintain and to redefine and to keep this thing going of our Māoritanga, of our Māori world. So it's that makes you a key component of it, whether you're making a flax kete or whatever you're doing, those are these potent languages are shaping and constantly saying this is the Māori culture. Whatever it is, whether you do it on a video platform or you do it with a 3D printer, I don't care.
Has Ulysses been back to Aotearoa, my bro?
No, not until we can get on this thing on February. We're coming back. Yeah.
That'll be a voyage.
I'm looking forward to it. It's been a while. Too long. Been away too long. Yeah.
How old is Ulysses?
He's just turned 6 now.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah. He's the blondie in my collection of boys. He's blonde with his blue eyes. And
hey, us Māori, we claim everybody,
Yeah.
Yeah, Māori, he whakapapa, of course. And I know, because my girl turns 18 next week. Yeah, and my boy's 15 and they went through Kohanga Reo, Kura Kaupapa, ko te reo rangatira tā rāua reo tuatahi, and they are another breed altogether, my bro. They don't have the same sort of hang-ups that we kind of have had, those of us who, you know, lost our language, or that idea of they're just like, they take it so for granted and it's just who they are. And so, you know, they make TikToks in te reo.
Yeah.
They, you know, they change te reo. They totally use it in a completely different way. I love their slang, the way they come up with new ways of saying things. It's ai he awa no.
Like Tommy said, one of the best things we can do is to leave as much evidence behind us. Yeah, because they might, if they don't do it now, as they get older, they'll come and look for it. They'll come and look for their names. They'll come and look for those family photos. They'll come and look for those stories. They'll come and look for all those connections, because that's what they'll need. Like you said, they're doing everything else.
Yeah. There's a question here from Eli Vincent. As a Kiwi born and raised, but not Māori, what's my culture?
What is your culture, Eli?
Yeah, well, whatever where your heart is, you know, and I think in many things your culture, you know, it doesn't
Where
not
your
necessarily.
grandparents, where your grandparents' names are, where they lived,
Yeah.
what are their stories? What your cousins, where they lived, what towns they lived in, what boat they sailed over here on, blah blah blah. You know, man, we're lucky to look that stuff up now.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was brought up, you know, I was brought up from the Kraua, Te Pēku, Purewa and Hukarere. And for the first 5-6 years of my life, all I can see then there were my papa and my mama. I didn't know that I was actually was a whāngai. Until I think in the conversation, the korero, they were saying things, and I was looking at myself and saying, I got a little bit confused about it. But anyway, I discovered that I'm actually whakapapa to Waikato. Yeah, my parents, my biological parents actually, Te Unuwai, Margaret and Tame. And so as a result of that, I made an attempt to go there and to find out about that. And that's really hard. It was really hard for me even just to try and have a relationship with my biological father. And going out to Waikato, and I took their mother with me, this fella's mother. So we cruised down there to check it out, and it didn't work out too well, you know. And because I wanted to know who am I, you know, other than me being brought up in the Rātoki. And so it's a really interesting journey for me just doing that. And so I discovered my other side, my connection to Ngāti Wairere, to Ngāti Haua, to Maniapoto, to Kāpia, in a short period of time. So that's a period of about 5 to 6 years, making those connections. And I'm still doing that, and still building those relationships. And on my Te Arawa side, and then also on my Waikato side, and all the way down to Te Rauparaha, you know, and those connections to Te Rauparaha and Ngāti Toa. And so we all connected. So it's a journey itself. It's a lifetime journey, you know, making those connections. It's really important. So if we too had to work on that and to find ourselves. Yeah, really interesting journey.
Yeah, it's definitely a work in progress. Yes.
Hey, George, it's been awesome to have you on, bro.
Cool.
We're coming up to our time slot, but the
great,
man, it's just been so awesome to have you come in, record it all with us, getting up early. Yeah, really miss you, bro.
Yeah, I'll see you soon.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be seeing you soon.
Yeah.
Nā mihi
to
e
the
hoa,
whānau out
te
there
rangatira.
who've been watching, I hope you've enjoyed the korero. It's been amazing. And thanks to everyone who's been commenting. Hey, Tanya, thanks for those stars on Facebook Live. And we'll let Dad... going to close us out there.
E hoa, tēnei nā mihi kia koe. Me ki rā i nā tuku e tahina kupu karakia kia tātou. Tērā ki nā mauna, ki nā awa, tērā ki nā tīpuna, ki o rātou nā wairua. I arataki nei i a tātou i tēnei yahi, i tēnā ata, i tēnā pito o te ao. Tēnei kua hoki te mihi atu kia koe. O tira me o tātou nā whanauna koe e whakapiri whakatata mai nei i a tātou. Ki te whakarono i nā kōrero i runei te pono, i te tika, i te māramatanga. No reira i kia koe te rangatira hori. George, mihi kaua tana kia koe.
Tēnā koe.
Thank you, mate.